Oh, of course it starts recording.
It's all good. Rich and I are going to break into the concept of breaking, but
we can talk about what we're drinking too. I picked up some. I was in Jersey all last week, so I was also on vacation, and I picked up some Dogfish Head. The Alternate Takes Volume 4. So it's their whiskey series. This one is finished in Utopia barrels and Oloroso sherry barrels.
Ooh, nice. Is it a good sipper?
It's very good. Yeah, I actually have. I've been, I guess, collecting these throughout the years. I didn't realize how many I still had over there. So I have Volume 2 over there, about halfway full. I forget what that one was, and I have their. Apparently, you can only get these in Jersey. I like their beer, so I started buying their spirits. They're like 51% or 51 proof whiskey too, which is actually surprisingly good. I forget the guy. It's called Let's Get Lost, I think.
Yeah, it's funny. We just drove back through the Bourbon Trail here in Kentucky, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Bardstown Distillery. They've just one of those distilleries that have just like really expanded over time. They're building more rick houses now. Like it's ridiculous. Every time I drive up that way, and it's not that far from here. It's like maybe 2.5, 3 hours. It's just ridiculous. Like they're always building like 3 or 4, and like this time it's like now there's more across the it's not interstate, but it's Parkway, and it's been ridiculous. Like there's so many of them, and it's like starting to get like to where like maybe a Jim Beam is at, It's pretty wild on how expanded they're becoming. So I have a feeling that you'll see them like in that same breath as like a Jim Beam or a real common bourbon, just due to volume, is anything with the word Bardstown in it.
I've become friends with the guy down the street because our dogs are friends, and he took me to the Von C Brewing Company, which is a local beer brewery. But apparently it's the same family that used to not run, but I think they were like the main crafters for Schmidt beer, which I never heard of. But apparently that was a big thing in Philadelphia, like forever until like the 1980s. So
yeah,
they do very German beers, but they had this really. I'm looking to see what it was called now because it was a fantastic.
Schmidt's beer. Yeah, founded in 1860.
Yeah. These are like within walking distance, so like I could stumble over there and stumble back if I wanted to.
Oh, that's awesome.
Very, very good. And it was crowded too. They were doing what the hell they call that? Quizzo. They were doing Quizzo that night.
Gotcha. But yeah, no. So I don't know. I had a kind of a thought. I started playing Topps Bunt, which is a digital card collecting app for baseball. And it's just mindless. It really is. It's one of those apps. It's free, but it can cost money. Not anything out of this world as far as app experience, but it can really sink your time away. I'll say that. Rich, I know we just talked about it prior to recording, but it's kind of like playing Vampire Survivors mindless, where it's like, oh crap, like 30 minutes have gone away. I've just sat here crafting cards. Like it's just one of those type of experiences, but apparently it's been around for over a decade. And, my daughter has gotten really big into physical collecting. And the hobby's different than it was when we were all kids. But apparently Bob started buying physical packs just based off this app.
Yeah, because I have that addictive personality. And so here's what happened, really, is Peyton has all of a sudden, like for the longest time, hockey was his favorite sport. And then he started getting into football a little bit, and hockey was still his favorite. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, I guess maybe the World Series kind of sparked him, and he's like, I really like baseball. And so he's gotten really into baseball all of a sudden. And so I was like, all right, well, maybe this is a cool way to kind of pique his interest in the sport even more and help foster that, that burgeoning flame of love for baseball. because that, I mean, growing up, I mean, Rich, I know you played t-ball for a little bit. Tom, you played some baseball. I played
T-ball
baseball,
into very little bit of little league. Yep.
and so, and I know we all used to collect baseball cards. Even though, Rich, I know it's well documented that you're not the biggest sports fan in the world, but even that's how big the hobby was when we were kids. Was you had a favorite baseball player, George Brett, and so you collected George Brett. I collected Phillies and Ken Griffey Jr. and Nolan Ryan. Tom liked some degenerate by the name of Barry Bonds. I don't know who the fuck that guy is, but
It's funny because a podcast was just talking about this. I think the viewership for the World Series from when we were kids and last year was down something like 57% or something along those lines.
Well, and that's something that I wanted to talk about too, if we get the chance. But there's a young player who's come up that's ruffling some feathers, and I fucking love it. I absolutely love it because for years baseball, and they're still, and all the rule changes they've done this year have been to try and drag in the younger generation and the younger viewers, and it's working to a degree. But there's this kid that's playing now. He's a rookie for the Reds by the name of Ellie De La Cruz. This fucking kid is pissing everybody off, and I love it. Like,
yeah, like even yesterday, he stole second, third, and home.
Yeah.
On 2 pitches, and apparently it was the first Cincinnati Red to do it in like 100 years.
Yeah, but he's celebrating. He's doing like he's God forbid, and I know this isn't allowed. He's having fun playing baseball, and
well, you were saying he was dancing or celebrating. So
yes, and I love it. I love that they're spitting out their dentures in disgust at this young kid having fun playing baseball. The fucking audacity of this kid. Get him out of the league. He should be fined and banned for life. Shut the fuck up. He's having fun. He's bringing viewers to your fucking team, to your sport that aren't in a nursing home drinking fucking prune juice wearing their Depends. Shut the fuck up and enjoy it.
Wow, that was good. I should have stopped right there.
Mm.
No,
he's not Johnny Bench, but
yeah, and here's where okay, so this is a great lead in actually. So now you get into the part of card collecting and where we're at now, and we can go back in time too when we collected, which we've talked about here before, and we've poked fun at you about trying to sell cards, or at least the one shop did.
Yeah, fuck those.
But we've talked about cards before, and I think that was a good conversation. And I'm certain that we can circle back to how it was when we were all younger. But obviously the hobby's changed, and it's very different now. So a player like De La Cruz, though, his cards are going for a way premium. And now you have the insert, parallel, autograph, uniform, whatever city on top of all that. That's been existent now for the last couple of decades, obviously, in mass, if you will. But now it's just different because the thing is you have kind of a twofold thing. One, it's really hard. You can't just go into a store like we used to 20 years, 30 years ago and be like, oh, yeah, I want to get 3 packs of Topps. Mainly because they're not there. A lot of the retailers aren't carrying them. The hobby shops will have them, but they're at a premium price. And now you have your differences between your retail packs, your hobby packs, your blaster boxes, your whatever. You've got all this stuff. And so that kind of led into another part of the market with, okay, maybe I can't find this said set or this said type of card that I want because they're all bought up. Well, they're bought up by either insane collectors or people that sell breaks. So, Rich, you want to just kind of run through us what card breaking is?
Yeah. Now, like Bob said, I don't really follow baseball, but for whatever reason, I watch a lot of YouTube, and I watch people open baseball cards on YouTube, and I don't know why, because I don't know the players. I don't know the people opening the cards. Like one of them was actually, I guess he was a baseball player for a while, like Phil Hughes. Is that who it was? Phil Spools? He was like a pitcher for something, and he opened baseball cards online for a little bit. He's kind of gone missing for a while, so he might be dead or OD. Whatever happens to baseball guys, I don't know. But the idea of a break is a lot of times you see it with higher end stuff, but people do it with like new stuff or whatever too. Basically, you're buying into a box and you're buying into certain things in the box. Some of them are random, but sometimes you buy into a division or you buy into a team. Like let's say you want to buy what's the Topps finest or whatever, like a
Yeah,
box
Finest Chrome, Bowman Chrome, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so you pay $50 for either a random team thing where they randomize what team you get or what division you get, or like let's say you buy $40 for the Brewers or $60 for the Yankees. So as they're opening up the 36 packs or whatever that's in that box, you get all the players from that team or that division go to you.
Yeah, and
I'm sure it happens not televised, but on YouTube they do everything live stream or whatever. So you're watching them opening up the stuff, so you're not getting cheated from whatever the break is.
right, and that's the part that kind of gets me. So I'll be honest, I really didn't. Look, we've all watched YouTube to see people open stuff over the years, whether it's baseball cards or anything really.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that, like, let's say somebody buys this unique, video game set or pack that has something that we're never going to get our hands on, and they get it, and it's like, oh, this has this map or this booklet or this whatever. It's artwork, and it's neat. It's neat to see because you never had your hands on it. Or it's like, okay, that's what it looks like. Then I'm going to go try to buy it. So it's been a concept that's been around for a long time. Now the problem with breaking though is that I'm not saying the entire industry is like this, but my big gripe is I've seen plenty of videos of sleight of hand. So let's say somebody they buy the Reds and they put that $50 on the Reds and they get all the Reds cards. And somebody pulls a De La Cruz that's limited to out of 5 or out of 10 or whatever it is, which is now going for several hundred or $1,000+. And immediately it's like, and then it's gone. Even on a live stream, that magician sleight of hand trick. I don't know. Like, I was so bothered seeing some of the videos that were like that like I almost hate that entire part of the hobby, even though I understand it because it's with technology, it's with the times. It makes sense. It's what people do. They record themselves opening stuff up. But man, that sleight of hand stuff, especially with cards, just not cool at all. I don't know. Have you guys seen those videos where people are pulling stuff aside and hiding it? Or
I've not seen sleight of hand. I've been watching. It's like two brothers from the Pittsburgh area. One's Jab's family, and the other one's like out of the past. He does toys and stuff too. They seem legit. Like, I've never seen them rip anybody off or stuff like that. But I mean, I guess it happens.
Yeah, I've seen. There's I've seen them on YouTube, and I've seen it on Twitter and other sites. And it's not. I can't say it's often, but there's some main ones that they act as, I guess overall they are. Hey, we have 50 different card breakers that work for us, and they're pretty popular. And even then, like, those people still aren't like foolproof. They still have one person that may have been doing some good stuff for them for 6-8 months or more, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh crap! I have a $10,000 card in my hand. It's just a quick sleight of hand trick. Boom, put to the side." I don't know. Like, I know it doesn't happen often, but it happens often enough to where it's not a cool part of the hobby at all. And basketball cards are the worst with it. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like the Panini like sets at all or that stuff. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, Panini is weird because I don't know how deep or off topic we want to get, but Panini never had at least in the last couple of years, never had the MLB team license. So when you're buying their cards, at least for baseball, you don't get any of the logos or stuff on the card, which I never understood why you'd want to card of that. And now they don't have the MLB, they don't have the Players Association license at all. So if you're opening up Panini products that are baseball, you're either getting draft or guys that are in the minors, or you're getting people that don't play anymore.
Kind of like the classic cards. So now I've been out of the hobby for God, years and years and years, probably 10 years or more. Like occasionally picking up a Tops pack when like I was at Wawa or whatever, and I see him at the counter. But what's amazing to me is how baseball has been whittled down. It's just Tops.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they actually, what was it last year? They announced that Tops lost the MLB license. It went to Fanatics, and then Fanatics bought Tops. So
Yeah.
Tops is still. But what's weird is going back to what Tom said, the way baseball cards have changed and it turned into this whole thing. Is back when we were kids, we had that junk wax thing. So we had the explosion where everyone was going through buying baseball cards, and they made so many of them that not a lot of it's worth much.
Right.
So you had the people that were, wow, we sold a lot of baseball cards. Oh no, we see this thing where the baseball cards imploded in itself. So now they put chase cards in there. So you get the variants of the colors. You get people buy when Tom said hobby packs versus retail packs versus whatever. If you buy a hobby box, most of the time you're guaranteed 2 or 3 autos per box, and that's what people are going for. They're going for the colored cards or the auto cards. But if you look at like everything exploded during the pandemic, so you could have a PSA. PSA is another one that kind of not quite imploded, but there were so many. Let's look at Vladdy Jr. His rookie card came out during the pandemic. When people were opening up, everyone started buying the cards. They were opening up them. So you had Vladdy, Pete Alonso, Bo Bichette, a couple other big name guys. There are so many PSA 10 of that card because there's so many of them. So many people were sending them in that a PSA 10 of them is like a $5 card. It's worth less than the actual cost of getting it graded. So what a lot of people are going for now are the chase cards. And then I guess since 2000 something, Tops are doing gold cards where it's limited to that year. So there's only, like for 2005, there's only 2005 of the gold cards. So people are looking for the rookie cards of them now. So it's that thing where it's to get people buying again. You have to do the super limited numbered cards.
Right.
And that's where you start to see the insane, like, I don't know why, but Tom was right. It's like for some reason, football, I guess because there's more people watching, I guess the sports are more popular now than baseball. But the football and basketball cards can go for like tens of thousands of dollars for like a new guy's. Like,
oh, it's crazy. I just I was on Twitter earlier, and someone pulled a 1-of-1. What's her name from Iowa State, Caitlin Clark, who was came up big in the NCAA women's basketball, particularly in the tournament last year. And Iowa State didn't even win it. It was Iowa State. No, it was Iowa. I'm sorry, Iowa Hawkeyes. And that card apparently is valued at $10,000. Yeah, it's crazy where some of this stuff's going. But some of those De La Cruz cards, Bob, you mentioned, they're well into the thousands, tens of thousands of dollars already. It's crazy. Now, obviously, it's going to hit a bubble point. Rich, you hit that dead on. Like, eventually, get to a point where even with the stuff that's short printed or special or whatever, I don't know, the shine wears off too. So.
Oh yeah,
Does anybody else find it weird that Upper Deck, whose logo is, and hell, their name is based on baseball, only has hockey now?
Is that all they do?
Yeah. They lost their baseball. Everybody but Tops lost their baseball license, and because, like Richie said, Fanatics got the MLB license and bought Tops.
Well, that and like I know Panini does. It's funny, Panini Donruss, like they'll have the Donruss label underneath the Panini name, which is kind of disgusting because I always love seeing Donruss as a. Bob is showing us a DJ the Mayhew Clubhouse, Topps Heritage uniform card. That's a good pull. Yeah. But no, and that's the crazy thing. Like, I loved it when we were kids because you had Topps was still to me always the gold standard, even in the junk wax era. Upper Deck, I think, kind of stole their thunder for a couple of years. The Topps was always up the top of the game. It was fun to always look at Fleer and Donruss. You had a Leaf come in there from Canada.
Peachy.
Oh, Peachy. You had some interesting things floating around. So I've gone back in time a little bit. And are you guys familiar with Topps Tiffany at all?
Yeah.
So I was one of those things that like I was always aware of, but never really had any. And then you can start looking around on eBay. You can get some pretty decent Topps Tiffany cards. Rich, are you familiar with Topps Tiffany at all?
I know they're like nicer card stock and like white backs. I don't know. I've heard of them. I don't know where you originally got them from.
Yeah, they're shorter prints. They're still pretty common though, because like I've picked up like I picked up a Schmidt 87 Topps Tiffany for like under $3. I got like a 90 Crook Tiffany for $1. I mean, they're still very cheap, but they're very nice cards. Like they look exactly like that year's set. And if you flip the back over though, it's very, like you said, Rich, it's very nice and shiny white. It's just a pretty card. It just looks nice. And you can find like full Tiffany sets for relatively inexpensive. And I think that's this thing that if you go back in our era, prior to like the gold and all that stuff, that would be, you know, the parallel, if you will. Because otherwise we were just flooded with junk wax, and really the only thing we had to look for was Donruss Diamond Kings.
I was just which one had there was one, I want to say it was Upper Deck, where they had that. It was like you would get the, give me a second, Mr. Natural baseball card from the movie. There was one that was the guy that was in Space Jam, Michael Jordan's card. It was whatever that set was. They had like cards that were super short print from that kind of thing.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, we it was just and I think one of them, it may have been Donruss. You could, for a while, like they had those. There was like a Mickey Mantle signed card in one set, or other signed Hall of Famer stuff. Like before signatures were a big thing. It's like they were one of the first ones that started that.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing now. Like you still find even Topps in their regular sets, they'll do one of one cut signatures of players that are long gone. I think this year they threw like a Jackie Robinson in there, and so they've been doing this for years though. And that's just really cool. Like that's the part of the chase, right?
Yeah.
You're looking for that, but I think going back to the breaking part of this is what really frustrates me is that because you can't get your hands on certain packs or boxes or whatever, because they're sold out so fast, because they're being brought up by these breakers, and now people are breaking them online, which is fine. That's part of the business, right? I mean, that's how people make money. But then some of these people that are just maybe not necessarily maybe they were legitimate for a few months, and then they realized they came across something that was going to pay off their car, and then they turn into a criminal at that point.
Yeah.
That's about where I feel with that part of it. It's a disgusting part of it. And it sucks because it's like when we were kids, yeah, granted the market was flooded with just basically garbage, but like it was still cool to chase the Griffey rookie.
Speaking of which, the 1989 Topps traded Tiffany factory sealed on eBay, $1,277 with that Griffey rookie in it.
Yeah, so that was a little more than what I'll spend, but
yeah.
I'll give my $1 to John Crook 90 Tiffany all day.
Was it? I guess it was back when we were kids. I don't know the year. Bob will probably know, but I bought that George Brett card that you can only get the Desert Storm one with a little gold stamp on it.
91,
yeah.
And 91 Topps, yep.
And like a regular 91 George Brett's worth probably nothing, but that other one, I think it cost me a little under $100, somewhere around that.
Yeah, they were rare. You could only get them on bases and stuff.
Yeah, occasionally I'll see like the 91 like checklists come up that are graded, like the checklist, nothing crazy. Which, yeah, kids, if you're listening to this, a checklist used to be exactly that. Card number 1 is this. Card number 2 is this. They're going for $300 or $400 out of that set.
And that's for the Desert Storm ones. Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
Because nobody gives a shit about the checklist. You know what we use the checklist for, or what I use the checklist for? Checklist was the top card and the bottom card on the rubber bands.
Yeah, so it didn't break it.
Yeah.
There was one year in the 60s, though, where Mickey Mantle was on the checklist, and people want that one just because Mickey Mantle was like, it's a little tiny picture of his floating head at the top of the checklist. And that's a Mantle card.
Hey, you know what? If that's some people's only Mantle card, that's more than one I got.
My dad, when he told me that when they were little and they lived in Barrington, he and his brothers used to put they used to put the baseball cards in the corner of the attic, and that's where they stored them because it kept them like stacked up. And he said when they moved, they left all their baseball cards there. And he said, "Oh yeah, I had Mickey Mantle rookie cards. I had Nolan Ryan. I had this. I had that." I'm like, Dad, the hell.
Yeah, now there's a 16.7 and a 69. But that's the other thing too. So I think that's the other cool part of the hobby is if you look back. So eBay is your friend in this, and hey, look, you can go and look all sorts of ways through eBay, however you view it, as far as card collecting, if it's worth it or not. I mean, I'm sure you could find a hobby shop or a show somewhere where something might be cheaper, but I've fairly recently picked up cards from the 50s for under $1. So I mean, you can still get things that are maybe not in the greatest shape, but I'm not going for things that are graded either. That's just not. Maybe a couple things would be cool to have graded, but I'm not paying several $100s for something that I just want something from that era.
I think what we should do, and Tom, I mentioned this to you, but I think the three of us should go in and buy one of those graded, like the membership or whatever the fuck it is, and then we can just send in cards. Like, we can send in however many cards, maybe make a little bit of money.
Yeah,
maybe that's how the Noise Brigade breaks big.
Break? Get it?
That was horrible.
No, but it's crazy though that Rich, you mentioned Bob, the whole PSA thing. Well, that's a whole nother. The PSA is was it Professional Sports Authenticators? Is that what that stands for?
Something like that.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother thing. Yeah, because it's expensive to get stuff graded, and then you end up with the grading process costing more than the card's worth.
Right.
That's another problem.
I own one graded card, and it was only just because I wanted to make sure it was authentic. Because I didn't know anything about cards. Well, I still don't know anything about cards. I got a PSA 5, the George Brett, Mike Schmidt rookie card.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh yeah, we've talked about that. I have one PSA card. I have a PSA 10 Justin Crawford, who's in the Phillies minor system. It was all of $8.
I thought for sure you were going to say that it was one of those porno cards.
Oh yeah, do you have those PSA graded, Rich?
No, none of them are great. They're all sticky. The surface is
penis stickiness. But what's the A stand for?
Rich turns it in, and it has that designation says altered.
I do own not a lot, but I bought some graded comics here and there, and I did talk about. I think I joined the smallest tier for the CGC, the comic book grading one, but I sent one thing into their signature service, and that was about it. Like they did in-house signings, so I sent something there.
So this is kind of great. I'm glad you said the comic book grading thing, because that was going to lead me into the next part of what I was curious about from both of you guys. Because this grading thing doesn't lend itself to cards and obviously comic books. The video games have gotten this treatment too. So
I don't. For a long time, I put aside getting graded comics because I think comics should be read. But when you're buying 60 comic books from if a comic book came out in 1959 and you have it today, how many years is that? I drank too much. That's like 60, 70-year-old comic. at this point you're spending $1,000 and you want to make sure that the comic's authentic and that it's not going to get damaged. Having it in one of them PSA holders, not PSA, CGC for comic book holders is a good thing. Same thing with baseball cards. I think if you trust the authenticating company, and that's the big deal. That's the thing. We're going into video games. WADA, the people that graded video games, lost a lot of their faith. The people lost the faith in the grading company because of some shady things going on. But PSA and CGC have been around long enough, and they have the visibility that WADA didn't have, where you can see population statistics and stuff. So you know how many, going back to PSA, you know how many PSA 9 Mickey Mantle 1952s there are. There's 4 or 5, whatever the hell the number is. So you're knowing if you buy one of them, it's one of the ones off the list.
Right, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but PSA has it where you can publicly search
exactly
that number, which is really nice for anybody. So even if you have it in your collection, you can search it yourself, or hey, I've got this for sale. Somebody can easily say, oh, that number matches exactly what you're selling. So
the problem is a lot of people saw how grading something affects the value. So you had a pile of these other grading companies pop up where they're, you send it into them, you pay a much lower fee. They grade it, whatever, and then put it in their plastic cases, and people think, oh, well, I got this graded by whatever. And especially with cards, you see a lot of, I know there's the 3 big ones are PSA, Beckett, and CG, whatever the black border ones are. I forget what they are. PG something.
Yeah.
CG, yeah, the black border ones people send the older ones to first, I guess, because they look better in the black border cases. But Beckett and PSA are too biggies.
Yeah. I have 2 Beckett cards and 1 PSA card, and I know what you're talking about. There's a SGC or something.
That could be something like that. Yeah.
It's CSG or SGC, sports card or whatever it is. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's the tag is very simple. Basically, it's not a whole lot to it.
Comic books, it's CGC, or if you have something, CGC won't do signature authentications. So if you have a signed comic, you have to send it to another company. No, I forget that. I'm a little too drunk right now to know who it is. But you have to send it to them because they'll actually authenticate the signature and grade it. But people like CGC better because they've been around longer, so you get a little higher. And that's what it is. It all comes down to the people's faith in the grading company. And then even with the baseball cards, it's fascinating. I've been watching this guy. I can't think of his name now on YouTube, but he'll do submissions to the grading company. He'll tell you, he'll say, if you submit it to PSA, you're getting this amount of money from a 7 to a 9. If you submit it to the other grading company, you're getting 30% less just because it's this other grading company. But then you got, like you said, turnaround times where everyone's submitting it to PSA right now. So you could have like a 6 to 7 month waiting period. And if you're submitting a brand new card to them, like this guy that you're just talking about, De La Cruz or whatever, or let's look at Shohei Ohtani. Is that his name? Yeah. He's doing better now, so his cards are starting to go up in price. But for a while, he wasn't doing so. So if you're doing something where you want to sell the card right away, you can't wait the 7 months to get it graded by PSA. So it might be better to take the. So it all depends on what you're doing with this stuff. And that gets into grade. Like I said, until I started buying higher end stuff, I never agreed with the grading. But I know that the investment won't hold unless the stuff's graded. Like right. I have comic books now. That's the reason why I bought a membership into CGC. Is there's some comics that I was thinking about selling, and I know to get the most out of those comics, I got to get them graded.
Yeah, and so I was curious though. I know Bob, I saw you put your head in your hands whenever I said it on the video game aspect of that. Because Richie made a great comment and said, you know what, comic books are meant to be read.
Yeah.
Which 100% I agree. I mean, video games a whole nother level of that though. Because you can burn through a comic book pretty fast. Let's not kid ourselves here that we're done in 20-30 minutes, even after admiring every little image and whatever.
Not to interrupt you, but I still I still read comics and I still buy comics, but I don't read the comics I buy. I'll buy the comics that I really like and like put them in the basement in a box and then read them on the iPad. Like I read everything digitally now, so I don't have to worry about they're there. It's just a convenience more than anything else.
And that's the thing. I feel like if I still collected comics, like I subscribe to Comixology Unlimited, and so I recently did that, and so I'm finally catching up on a lot of the stories that I knew bits and pieces of from reading stuff online and whatever. Because even though I didn't buy comics anymore, I still followed the storylines. Um, so I'm catching up. But I feel like now that Rich, that's actually probably the smartest way to do it is to if you're a comic collector and you're serious about keeping your collection intact and good, for lack of better, you buy the actual physical copy, bag it and board it, put it away, read it digitally. Because honestly, let's be real here. Looking at it that way as a collector, it's almost it is an investment, right? And comic books ain't cheap anymore. When we were younger, you get them for $1.25, $1.50. You know, what's the average price of what is it like $3.99,
Yeah,
$4.50 for Spider-Man?
Turtles book was $6.
What was?
Armageddon game #5, or number whatever the last one is,
Jesus.
number 8. It looks like I want to say $3.99 is probably the average price.
Right, and that's not.
Standard book.
And what you get, like, is Spider-Man still weekly?
Marvel does this for all their shit. Amazing Spider-Man, I think, might be weekly, but there's also like 9 subtitles of Spider-Man. That's
Right. So, and that's what pushed me out.
oh yeah,
Like,
yeah, I agree.
I mean, well, One More Day pushed me out too, but I still hadn't given up even after One More Day. I just gave up on Amazing Spider-Man, but especially when it went when it went weekly. So $3.99 a week, plus whatever other books are coming out that week. So Wolverine, X-Men, The Flash, and then whatever extra books are coming out. Then Spectacular Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, Deadpool, and it just adds up. And when the cheapest shit you're getting is $3.99, and that's every fucking week, it adds up really quick. So yeah, you know what? Like Stan Lee said, comic books are like boobs. You can look at them on the internet, and that's great. But all things considered, I'd rather hold them in my hand. That still stands true. But they're fucking expensive now, and it's easier it's easier to just look at them on the internet at this point. So, comic books, I 100%, I'm with you on that. With bagging and boarding and reading.
Yeah, and no, I agree completely too. It's like, hey, I want to, protect the investment, if you will, and I have another way to enjoy it.
Right.
Throw it on the iPad, throw it on whatever your device is that you're doing the reading on. Video games, different realm though. And then you have these insane things about classic video games that are boxed, graded, whatever, that are going for more than houses.
Right.
It's just a weird thing.
I just went to too many games this month, maybe. No, I don't remember when it was. It wasn't that long ago. And I was telling my mom coming back that it's time to sell the shit in the basement because I got several $1 million in the basement according to these people. I don't know if they were selling stuff at this thing, but people are having just the prices on some of this stuff is insane now. I don't know where. Yeah.
And that's the thing. And it's the pandemic really fucked. I mean, all right. I'm not going to say it the way I was going to say it because it would minimize a lot of other things.
Things are starting to normalize a little bit from the pandemic. Baseball cards are definitely normalizing. Comics are coming down a little bit. I'm glad I didn't buy anything during the. I'm really glad I didn't buy anything during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I bought like packs of cards. Like for whatever reason, I was buying Pokemon cards, and I haven't bought any since, which is good because I don't need any more. I'm looking at my basement. I got all this bulk. Like I've been giving them to my nephew. Like here you go. You like Pokemon cards, right? Here's some stuff. But yeah, that jacked up the prices of everything. But we're still seeing some stuff inflated, even with. I mean, the economy's doing a little better, but it's not good. So it's weird to see the prices where they are for this kind of stuff.
Well, what kills me is games like Super Mario Baseball, Super Mario All-Star, whatever the fuck the GameCube version of it was, right? I remember buying it new for $50. I remember it becoming one of the greatest hits and dropping down to 20 or whatever the fuck Nintendo priced those at. Maybe it was 30, I don't know. And I remember for a long time you could see it in video game stores for like between 20 and $40. Explain to me why it's now $200.
I don't know. I know
It's a great game, but
during the right before the pandemic, somewhere around there, I had my my surround sound receiver broke, and I'm like, well, I don't want to spend cash, so I grabbed Chibi Robo and the Paper Mario and Fire Emblem for the GameCube. And for those 3 games, I got like $1,500. You're like, okay, well, that works. And that was at a store. Like I took it to a retail place that were going to resell them. So I don't know what they marked them up to. It was like, okay, well, I got my receiver and some speakers. Worked out well. I don't know.
Mario Baseball dropped back down.
Yeah.
So
you're seeing things normally. Things are starting to normalize a little bit.
Now let's see if my favorite one that bites me in the ass every time I look it up has come back down. Cubivore.
Nope. I thought you were looking up. What was that? Custer's
Revenge?
Yeah,
I have a sealed copy of that I should go get graded by Wada.
See?
No,
there was a guy. This was a couple of years ago. That's the other thing is we've been. I don't know. We've been collecting our stuff so long now that like we bought this stuff either when it first came out or when it was really cheap. So like now should definitely be the time. I still can't let go, but it's like well, I only paid like $50 for this. If I can get $400 for it, I should sell.
Right.
It's hard to do it. Somebody was selling. It was I got Custer's Revenge, Beat 'em and Eat 'em, and I forget what the third one is. But I paid like $50 each for them sealed on eBay.
It's something. It's a knight, right? It's like
I don't remember what the third. There was a.
It's the one where the knight's running across the bridge and his dong is just bouncing, right?
It might be. And then I got a loose copy of Custer's Revenge too.
Yeah, which we played.
Yes, we did.
No, Cubivore disc only, still $300.
Yeah, well, I had a complete in-box copy of Earthbound. I paid $150 for it. I sold it for $3 and thought I got a deal. I think now it's like I think I've seen people selling it, trying to sell it for $3,000 at the show. I don't know what it actually goes for. It's like, man.
Between $2,000 and $3,000.
Okay, yeah.
Holy shit! Yeah. I had the opportunity to buy the cartridge. The cartridge alone is $332 now. I had a chance to buy it for $1,000, or not for $1,000. Yeah, that would have been a great fucking deal. Yes. I had a chance to buy it for $75. And I passed. I was like, $75 is too much. I can emulate it. Well, and that's the thing, like, man,
it came on if you got the mini console, I think it came on that.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. And I think you can play it on the Switch too.
Yeah, it's on the online service, and that's the kicker of it too. It's like
I've tried to play it 10 times now and couldn't get into it. I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm just saying I
loved it.
Yeah.
I do.
No, I'm with you on that one because I just never could. I love the characters from it. I love seeing them pop up in other things. I just never could get into that game.
Yeah. Earthbound Zero, I tried a couple times too. I bought like a translated copy of that for the Game Boy and couldn't get into that either. That was the Mother Zero, or whatever the first one was called.
No, I played through the first or through Earthbound and beat it, and I loved it. But I'll admit there were some parts that were exceedingly frustrating. Like there's a part where you have to actually put your controller down. Well, I mean, you don't have to put it down, but you can't touch any buttons for like 5 minutes or something like that. because there's you have to talk to a character, wait exactly 5 minutes, and then the character will let you in. But if you touch any buttons on the controller, it resets the timer. You have to go for 5 minutes without touching a button, and then the guy's like, okay, you can come in now. Like, there's some stupid shit, which is why it came with that book, because you need to know you can't touch any buttons for 5 minutes or else you're never getting through that fucking door.
Yeah, and kind of going back to the collecting part of that though, and I think we've all just kind of came to that point here. It's like, how much money is that going for a copy of, ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
And then it's like, yeah, you know what? If I really want to play it, like, I'll just subscribe to the service, or I can emulate it in another way that doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, I got a Raspberry Pi 4 connected.
Right.
I never used, but if I ever wanted to turn it on, there's like every game ever.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it really boils down to how much you're into it. But then I think that's the crazy thing about that whole part of it. It's like the graded part of that. I don't know. It's like you can't. I guess you could theoretically sit there and be like, you know what? I have this PSA 10 Mickey Mantle rookie card, and I have it. It's worth all this money, and it's awesome, and it's great. But I can't emulate it. I mean, I could draw it.
Yeah.
It's not worth anything.
Right.
But, I don't know. It's weird. I think that's what the part of the whole video game grading thing's weird for me. It's like, yeah, I mean, I realize it's short printed and whatever, X, Y, Z. But I don't know. It's a strange part of that hobby. I don't know.
It's everything boils down when you get into grading. It's really being boiled down to an investment. And if you listen to some of the people that have done deep dives into the video game grading specifically, it's a lot of, I don't know how true any of this is, but a lot of people theorize that it was people who were coming from coin collecting, went from coin collecting with the grading stuff to comic book collection to the grading stuff. And they said, well, we already have all this stuff. What's the next thing we could get into? And it was video games. And it's the coin collectors and people who were into that whole grading thing created that whole graded video game thing, but they created it with some shady people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like you got to grade the fact that it's sealed, and then the box itself, and then just this other stuff with it. And yeah, it's just.
And then it's got to be like people who know what they're grading too. Like some of the WADA specific stuff that was graded, people know that it's there's some repos that got graded as genuine stuff.
Right.
Yeah, because they didn't know what they were doing because they weren't video game experts. They were just people that were starting up. So, yeah.
And that's what, and that's one of the really bad things about the whole, like, look, I'm sorry. I feel like grading comic books makes sense. Grading baseball cards makes sense, especially baseball cards, because you can see it doesn't affect your ability to enjoy the card at all, unless you're trying to put it in the spokes of your bike. Can't do that with a graded card. Other than that, everything else you want to do with it, you can do. You can look at it, you can see. Perfect. It completely destroys the entire idea of having the video game.
Well, the one thing where it almost makes sense is the sealed stuff. Like if you guarantee it's an authentic seal, and you're getting that grade.
Yeah, that to me, like, that's if you're buying.
At that point,
copies, right? I mean,
yeah, it's an investment. Like you're buying things, you're expecting that to go up in cost, or there to be not many of them around. But you have to. That's the whole thing. Knowing about the population reports, knowing how many of them were sold. Like if you look at people, for a while rather, it was Mario 64 was the one that kept going up and up in price. But if you look at that, it's like, well, everyone that had a Nintendo 64 had a copy of Mario 64 because it was like one of the only games that came out when the system came out, like a launch game.
It was like that and Gex.
Yeah, it was also like a million seller. So you have the whatever ones, and there's probably a pile of them sitting in warehouses still yet. It's not necessarily that old, all things considered. Yeah, so there's that whole thing. But what's even worse than video game grading, which again I don't unless it's sealed, I don't understand it either. is there's VHS grading now. Now,
God.
VHS was never the best way to watch anything ever. You have people that are trying to sell VHS tapes for thousands of dollars because people, again, a lot of this is just the pandemic made people crazy, and hopefully people are coming back to their senses now. But during it was just, I collect, I mean, obviously I collect a lot of things. The pandemic sucked for me. Like, I'm not paying this price for anything that's out. I don't want to, I mean, it was just, it was insane. It was horrible. So I stopped, I sold all my N64 loose games. I sold all my GameCube games because I bought a GameCube emulator. Like, well, I don't, GameCube wasn't my thing anyway. I never had one when it first came out. So it's like, oh, I didn't pay a lot of these. I can get a lot of money for these now. This is something easy for me to let go of. And I started buying more comics because they were reasonable for a while, and then now they're not. Well, I mean, they're getting better again. And it's just like I said, I hope things normalize a little bit. I don't own any graded. People grade toys too, and that's the other thing that, like, again, they're supposed to be played with, but I can understand that, if they're sealed or whatever, again, that's an investment thing. But with with toys and video games specifically, I think they're going to be limited to the people that have nostalgic feelings for them.
Mhm.
If you look towards some of the collectibles of the past, I think with comic books, because these characters are evergreen, like Superman's always going to be popular, Spider-Man's always going to be popular. So new fans are always going to want those early issues of, well, this is where Spider-Man came from. Let's either read them, or if they have money, let's buy them. But if you look at Elvis collectibles, they're not worth anything anymore because everyone who ever liked Elvis is dead. Toy trains, they're not worth a lot anymore because everyone who collected toy trains are either really old and dying or dead. And it's been left to their children and whoever, and like, well, they have no involvement in this other than the fact that their parents or loved ones like these, so let's just get rid of these for whatever.
I will. I'm
with
going to
video
fight you
games-
on that one. I'm going to fight you on that one real quick because my aunt does just like nanny work essentially, and one of the houses that she goes to in South Carolina, they're just super duper rich, and dude has an entire, and he's not old. I think he's our age or younger, and he has an entire, like, the entire bottom floor of their house is model trains and shit. And he's got like an entire like town and stuff built, and all these fucking model trains that go all over the place. It's creepy.
But are they the old line-out trains, or are they the newer, let's make everything look super real to life as possible kind of?
Both.
Yeah.
He has a collection of them. He's got old ones and new ones. So creepy. Anyway, sorry, continue.
I was going to say this real quick, though. I know we've kind of run the gamut on, card grading and comic books and video games and toys and whatever. Is there anything oddball, Rich or Bob, you're seeing that's being graded these days that's just like, what in the world's going on here?
Nothing as odd as VHS tapes.
That's
like, that's who the fuck. I mean, eventually I mean, I guess maybe if you keep on playing them, they don't like.
Well, that's the thing. It's not. I don't think it's. I don't know if anybody's getting non-sealed ones graded, but it's just weird.
So eventually, what they're doing is essentially just the tape is melting to itself, and it's just going to be a puck.
Could be. That's the other thing too. Is if you ever buy or ever look at old big box PC games and other things that came in those big cardboard boxes, records too. If you find like sealed records that haven't been opened, eventually that plastic on there contracts.
Yeah,
as it heats and it starts to actually wreck the packaging that they're in.
Yeah, no, I actually had two sealed records. I had a sealed Blue Album by Weezer and a sealed Concrete and Gold, or no. What the fuck was the album? I don't know, a sealed Foo Fighters album. Yeah, it's Concrete and Gold. And I had put them while we were moving and stuff, I had put one of my record crates in the garage, and because of the heat, the shrink wrap popped through.
Yeah.
Or the record popped through the shrink wrap because the shrink wrap continued to shrink. when they were no longer brand new.
So yeah, I think it would be remiss though if we didn't mention, obviously PSA we've talked about here, but PSA also grades magazines, newspaper clippings,
Fucking newspaper clippings.
yeah, just weird things. Apparently they've rated Super 8mm video boxes because they have people on them, sports characters.
What about pubes? Do they grade pubes?
It's possible.
Hair clippings, like celebrity hair clippings. Will they do that?
I don't know,
but you can probably send them the JSA to get authenticated. Because again, they won't authenticate stuff at PSA, so you have to get it the JSA, the James Sledge people.
The Justice Society of America.
Yeah.